Hey guys, so today we're going to go over customary units and we're looking at measurements of length. And so we're going to go over a couple things. This video may be a little longer, so maybe if it's too long you need to pause in the middle, take a break. But I'm breaking it down, doing customary first, looking at length, and then we'll move on to metric later. We'll also we'll revisit looking at the gallon, quarts, and pints, but today let's start with length. So what I'm looking at, and I know some of the pages in your packet are a little hard to read, but I'm focusing on, I'm just going to show you guys where I am, this page, which mine is a blurry. I hope yours is better. Maybe it's not, but we'll break it down. And it gives you the measurement lengths in the middle. Those are important. And it gives you a little clue on how to find how we convert measurements. And that's what we're going to go over today. Now, before we begin, I'll warn you that, as you know, I'm taping from home. So once in a while you may hear a little noise, and hopefully that won't distract you. And we'll keep going. So the first thing I want to look at, and maybe at this point you want to take a sheet of paper and make you some notes, make up your own foldable or just your own sheet of measurements. But I want to show you my board, and you'll see I have a couple of things on it. So I'm going to hold it up and we're going to go over it, okay? So just looking at this, let me reposition my chair here. Okay, so looking at this, you see that I have length units. Now, this is important to know, and you started this earlier in earlier grades going over different types of ways to measure length. What I've done is list them small to greatest because when we get ready to convert, it's important to know who is smaller, an inch or a foot, or which is smaller, okay? That would be a better terminology. It'd also be you need to know which is smaller, a yard or a mile. So in setting up how we're going to convert, we need to know that. So I'll list them small to greatest. Now, again, maybe you want to take a sheet of paper and just jot down smallest to greatest when we're talking about length units. Notice I've also put the abbreviations because we will use the abbreviations. So IN period for inch, FT period for foot, YD period for yard, and MI period for mile. Now, the next important thing you need to know, and this is the important part of working with customary units, is you need to know your conversions. So that's what I've put over here. So again, see how I've made mine kind of colorful? And maybe you want to take a piece of paper, your own paper, get you some colored pencils, and we're not drawing. We're just recording our information. So you could hit pause where I'm holding this up, and you could take your colored pencils and make your own chart that you could put on your desk, on your wall, to have in front of you when you're doing these conversions that we're going to do in a little while. So the next thing I have is looking at our conversions. 1 foot equals 12 inches. 1 yard equals 30 feet. 1 mile equals 5,280 feet. And 1 mile equals 1,760 yards. Now, to kind of put that in perspective, I have a measuring tape I'm going to show you in a minute, and I will do that. I'm going to go ahead and put this board down and show you the measuring tape and just kind of looking at these measurements. Again, if you need to copy, I'd hit pause and copy on your sheet and just get this information to have in front of you. It might be too hard for you to read here. Some of you might think I can read it here, and that's fine, but let me also refresh your memory on this one. When we are copying information, making it our own, that's a great way to transport this information. When we're writing it, it goes from here up to our brain. So again, keep that in mind. So I'm going to put this down. I'm going to look at our tape measure. So if your parents have a tape measure at home, maybe you have a yardstick, maybe you have a ruler, it's a good way to look at measurements and just kind of visually put them in your mind. So I have a tape measure, so I'm just going to hold it up. And so we look at an inch, okay? Here's an inch. Let me show you that. Now, if you have your adult finger, an inch is about the width. I'm going to put my finger up there. I know it's kind of hard to see. See, I'm going to put it over the 1. An inch is about the width of an adult finger, your pointer finger an adult. Now, not for you because you're still growing, but when you look at your parents, and when I say about, that does not mean exact. So if you measure your parents' width of their pointer finger and it's not an inch or it's under an inch, you're like, oh, Miss Brown's wrong. No, I said it's about. So the width of an adult index finger from here to here is about an inch. That's something to help you remember. So again, there's an inch. When we're talking about our customary units, an inch is our smallest one that we have listed on our board, okay? So in order to make up a foot, I'm not talking about your feet that you put into your tennis shoes, I'm talking about the length of a foot. It takes 12 inches. So you see I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So now hold it to me to kind of give you, because when I hold it here, it looks huge, doesn't it? So I'm going to hold it against me to kind of give you some, so you can see it better. This is about a foot, or excuse me, this is exactly a foot because I've started with inch number 1 and I've ended where my pointer finger is pointing to number 12. That is a foot. 12 inches make a foot. Now, the next thing we're looking at is a yard. So again, remember we say inch, foot. Now let's go to a yard, okay? So a yard, and to give you just kind of a visual picture of what a yard can be, about the width of a normal door. So you're looking at your door that goes outside, it's about the width of that door. And again, you can take your tape measure at home and go measure it. Remember, the word about means close to, not exact. But when we look at a yard, it's made up of 3 feet. So, okay, so here's 1 foot is 12 inches. 2 feet is 24 inches. Just going to skip back a little bit so you guys can see that. And I got my pointer finger on 24. And going on. And hopefully you can see that. No, there we go. 36, that's where my pointer finger is. That is 1 yard. 3 feet, 36 inches is 1 yard. I said it's about the width of a door. So let me say that again. 3 feet, 36 inches is 1 yard. Exact 1 yard. It's about the width of a door. That's our estimate, okay? So that's a yard. Now, mile, I couldn't do that. So what I want you to think of for a mile is I want you to think of the track at the football field. And in order to make a mile, and when we talk about miles, we're talking about walking miles, running miles, or traveling by car miles. But the track at the football field, you'd have to go around that track 4 laps around that track to make a mile. So if you notice, I'm visualizing in my head the track. I'm saying 1 lap, 2 laps, 3 laps, 4 laps makes a mile. If you look back at your board, and these are when I taught 4th grade years ago, these were the hardest ones for the kids to memorize and put in their head, but you have to know, you want to know, that 1 mile is equal to 5,280 feet, and 1 mile is equal to 1,760 yards, okay? So here's the important thing for you to know, is when you're learning the customary units, you want to know these. You want to be able to recall them like you do multiplication facts. So a good thing to do is make up some flashcards. Quiz your parents on it. Race. See how fast you guys can get them. And know that 1 foot equals 12 inches, 1 yard equals 3 feet, 1 mile equals 5,280 feet, and 1 mile equals 1,760 yards. When you know that information, then we can easily convert between measurements. Okay? So now at the bottom, you notice I have 2 silly sayings. And remember, we've talked about this before, using mnemonics or silly sayings, silly rhymes, silly songs helps us learn the concepts. So here's the 2 rhymes that you have. Horse to fly, multiply. Now it makes no sense to you right now, but it will. Fly to horse, divide of course. So when we're talking horse to fly, what we're talking is if we're going from the biggest measurement to the smallest measurement, because a horse is bigger than a fly, we're going to multiply to convert. When we're going from the smallest measurement, the itty bitty fly, to the big old horse, the biggest measurement, we're going to do divide, of course. So knowing those little rhymes are going to help you. Now, at this point, if you're saying, "Whew, that was a lot of information," this would be a great point to stop, give your brain a break, go back, make your chart, make you some flashcards, and just stop for a few minutes and take all this in. This video is going to move on to show you how to convert, but like I said, you have the video in front of you, so if you need to pause and take breaks or just do sections at a time, that is fine. You're learning at home, it's a whole different world. In the classroom we take some breaks or we pause and talk about it, so you have to adjust your learning pace and do what's best for you. So again, remember, I'm just going to review these again. The more we hear them, then the more they'll go in our brain. Like multiplication facts, let's put them in our brain. 1 foot equals 12 inches. 1 yard equals 3 feet. 1 mile equals 5,280 feet. 1 mile equals 1,760 yards. Start training your brain and getting that in, okay? And we're going to use these next to show how we convert measurements. So when you look at your packet, that's what this page was trying to explain, but I've told you guys before, I'm a visual learner, I love to see it, but I'm also audio, I love to hear it, and then I'm also tactile, I love to write and practice. So we can be different styles of learning, and the more practice we can get with all those sensory ways, the better learner we become. So we're going to use the visual, we're going to learn our silly sayings, we're going to learn tactile writing, and get these programmed in our brain, okay? So that's what that's what this page was about in your packet. So now, if you will find this page, and again at the top, one of the 4th grade teachers wrote you directions, and we're just going to break it down and go over it today, and we're going to do a couple problems together. If you notice, they give you the strategy of using horse to fly, And they have it broken in different sections. So again, learning, maybe you want to do the first section. We're going to do 2 example problems, and you want to pause the video and finish the rest before you go on to the next section. Do what way works for you, okay? So the first section, we're looking at yards and feet. That's our first 6 problems. The second section, we're converting feet and miles. And the last section, we're doing yards and miles. So again, those measurements are important. So if you're ready, I would take out a sheet of paper and have it ready. We'll do a couple of practice problems together. And hopefully by the end of this, again, it's like everything else, the more practice, the better we get. Okay, so again, today, just customary units and length. We're just looking at what we use in the United States. And then we'll learn later about metric, okay? So hopefully you're getting your stuff together. And if you need to pause this video, now's a good time to pause and get your pencil and your paper and be ready to go. So what I'm doing next is I'm just getting my whiteboard and I'm looking at the problems, and we're going to take this slow. And by the way, the main important part of this is you know your conversions. You know that there are 12 inches in a foot, that there are 3 feet in a yard. That's the important takeaway we want you to get from this, and then how to manipulate those measurements and convert them. So on this part, you actually get to use a calculator. Now I have a calculator here just to double check my work. Some of the problems do get harder. Some of them are easy and you'll be able to do in your head. Maybe you have a calculator on an iPhone or on your computer. Maybe your parents will let you borrow theirs on their iPhone. But try to find a calculator and it will help you, because again, the main takeaway is that you know your measurements. You're able to go from how many inches are in a foot, how many feet are in a mile. That's what we really want you to know from this, okay? So again, you have a calculator, have it close to you too, and we'll get ready to start. So looking at this page, let's go ahead and look at number 3, because number 1 and 2, they show you the examples. And I'm going to set it up. I like, again, very visual. I like to use a little T-chart when I do mine. Now, if you do have a whiteboard at home, and I'll just tell you how I am. If you have a whiteboard at home that maybe your parents will let you use, then you can use it. If not, paper, pencil works fine. But no matter what, if your parents check your work later, prove it. Make sure you're proving. There are some problems we can do in our head. That is true. But we have to prove it to build that foundation. So I tell kids that can do it in their head, okay, maybe you can't do it up here, prove it on paper, and that's a great way of double checking yourself, because that's what we do as adults. When I'm going through and averaging my checkbook, I don't do it one time, I do it twice, I double check. So I want you to get in that practice too. It's very important. You'll be expected to do it in 4th grade and 5th grade. So let's get started. Number 3. So you should be writing on your paper. I'm going to write on my paper. The first thing I'm going to write is I'm going to write down my problem. That's important to do. So number 3 says 22 yards equals how many feet? And that's what that blank is there for. So I've written this on my paper. Okay? 22 yards equals how many feet? Now here's what I want you to do next. I want you to make a T-chart. So watch what I do, and you want to make sure it's exactly like mine. And I'll show you. This is a graphic organizer we call a T-chart. We use it a lot in math and in reading too. So we made our T-chart. Looks like a lowercase t. And I want you to leave space, but I want you, and you'll see what I do, you're going to write horse and fly. Now later on, we'll be able to abbreviate, but for right now, just getting it into our brain and programming our brain, I'm going to write the word horse. I'm going to write the word fly. But you're going to see that I'm going to leave room under horse to put something, and I'm going to leave room under fly to put something. Okay, so hopefully I've given you a second. You caught up. If you need to pause the video and write this down, please do, but that's what it should look like. Now here's where you have to know your important conversions, your important measurements, and you have to know who's bigger, who's smaller. Our horse, we want it to be the biggest, so watch what I do. I'm going to look at just my abbreviations, just my units. So I have a yard and I have a foot. I'm not worried about that 22. Pretend that 22 is not there. I have a yard and I have a foot. Ask yourself, look back at your chart, and see that's why if you make this chart, you'll have it in front of you. I'm going to hold my other board up here. But look back at your chart and ask yourself, okay, we're comparing yards and feet. Who's bigger, the yard or the foot? Well, if you look over here from smallest to greatest, you'll see the yard is bigger than the foot. And that's how we always want to set up our chart. The horse is the biggest measurement, so watch what I'm going to do. Yard and foot. Now, I'm trying to take this slow. Do you see how I've left space beside them? Because then you might think, oh, we're going to plug in these numbers up here, down here. Not yet. So I put horse's yard, fly's foot. The first thing I did was organize them, who's the biggest, who's the smallest, and I put their units. Now here's why we're letting you use a calculator, because you have to be able to recall the measurement, the equivalency between a yard and a foot. So we said the yard is bigger. Once you put the horse as the biggest one, here's your hint. A 1 is always going to go in front of that unit, so 1 yard. 1 is always going to go under the horse. That should help you. Equals how many feet? Well, look back at your chart. 1 yard equals 3 feet. Now watch what I did. That first line should be the conversion that you need to memorize. 1 yard equals 3 feet. See, we haven't even used this number up here, have we? So make sure you put that in. The first thing you're going to put on your T-chart at the very top is your conversion. 1 yard equals 3 feet. We decided yards is the biggest. We put 1 yard. How many feet does it equal? 3. Now we're ready to use this information in our silly saying. So we have 22 yards. Whatever the unit is, you have to put under that number. Now look what I'm going to do. So 22 yards has to go under yards. So I'm going to put 22 yards. And we are trying to know, I'm going to put me a blank right here so that I know what I found. We've got to know how many feet does that equal. Now this is where we use our silly saying. And you may say, this is a lot, but again, remember, the more we practice, the easier it'll get. So where are we going? Let's look where our number is. Wherever your number is where you start. The number from your problem. Are we going from horse to fly or fly to horse? Well, we are going from horse to fly. We're going from horse to fly. We have to find fly. So remember our saying, horse to fly to horse. So we go back here and we say, horse to fly, multiply. And I always tell the kids, if you can come up here in the corner, and look what I do, H dash F multiply, F dash H divide. Maybe you want to put those notes too. So look, I have my measurement from horse, so I'm going from horse to fly. Horse to fly, multiply. Here's another hint. You'll never use that one. Never, never, never. So it's just like it's a stable placeholder here. Horse to fly, multiply. When we go to horse to fly, you can kind of loop that around diagonally, and we're going to multiply. Now this one we can do in our head, can't we? So what is 22 times 3? 22 times 3, then pause it, see if you can answer it. 22 times 3 is 66. So 22 yards is equal to 66 feet. Now, maybe your parents have taught you a different way, and it doesn't mean their way is wrong. And if that way is working for you in some way they've taught you and they came up with that same answer, it's okay to use that way. We've seen a lot of success with this because it's routine and patterned. So, and if you do it a couple times, you will get used to it. You'll see what I'm talking about, okay? So this one went high to floor, horse to fly, multiply. I was about to combine them. Horse to fly, multiply. Okay, so we went horse to fly, we had to multiply. Okay, so the answer to number 3 is 66 feet. Now, if you're sitting there and you're letting me do all the work, you don't want to do that, because if you are and you're not practicing with me, then when you go to that independent practice, this is what we call guided practice right now, but when you go to that independent practice, you're going to be lost. Now we're going to do a different one. And we're going to do 2 from each section, so that'll give you some, it'll take away some of your problems. So I want to skip this time, and I want to do, well, I'm going to go to number 4. Because number 4 goes in a different direction than what you see. So write down number 4. We have 24 feet equals, so I'm writing on my paper, hopefully you're writing on yours, how many yards. So this is what I have. 24 feet, and we're going to figure out yards. So again, now here's where it gets repetitive, okay? So you copy down your new problem, and the next thing you're going to do is make your T-chart. I'm going to underline these units. And I'm going to put horse, I'm going to put fly. So same repetitive parts there. T-chart, horse first, fly second, okay? Space under the horse, space under the fly. Now, let's look at our units. Don't worry about that number. Ask yourself, who's bigger, the yard or the foot? And you should be saying the yard is bigger. That's why, again, until you really get used to these and get these in your head, having this chart in front of you is great, because you can look at your smallest to greatest and you say, oh, the yard's bigger. He goes first. Okay, yard's bigger, right? So horse is going to be yard. Fly is going to be foot. And if you remember, when you're converting yards and feet, this is how it should always look. Yard is first, feet is second. The biggest one is your yard, he's the horse. The smallest one is your foot, he's the fly, because it takes more feet to make up a yard. So that's, the horse always has one something. 1 yard, 1 mile. 1 foot when we're going to inches. So this time it has 1 yard. Now, again, to get it in your mind, how many feet are in a yard? You should say 3 feet. So that first line is always that conversion that you want to memorize up here. 1 yard equals 3 feet. That's the first step always. Okay? Now, the next thing you want to do is you want to put what information you have. And it gave us feet this time. Now, careful, careful, careful. Pay attention to what they gave you. Don't think it automatically goes right here. You have to match it up. Feet go with feet. Feet go with feet. Okay? So I'm going to put 24 feet under the 3 feet. All right. So let's see. Now look, this time we're figuring out who's the horse, right? We're figuring out that. So are we going horse to fly? Did they give us the measurement for horse? No. We started over here with fly, so we're going the different direction. Instead of going horse to fly, we start wherever the measurement they gave you. And they gave us 24 feet, so we're going from fly to horse. Well, what's our saying? Fly to horse, divide, of course. So again, fly to horse. When we have to figure out horse, divide, of course. Do not use that 1. Remember, we said that 1, he's just starting our measurements. He's showing us the conversion. Don't use the 1. You'll never multiply by the 1. You'll never divide. You're going to divide right here. 24 divided by 3. And again, that's a simple multiplication fact. You can probably do that in your head. 24 feet divided by 3 feet. And what did you get? And hopefully you got 8 yards. We bring the 8 back over here and we put the unit yards with it. So 24 feet is equal to 8 yards. Okay? And that's how we do when we do horse to fly. So that was feet and yards, okay? So that was 2 problems on the first. Now, you have a couple of options. Maybe because we've done these together, maybe you want to stop the video here and just do the section on yards and feet and just go back and look at the 2 examples I've given to help you set up. Maybe you want to do that, okay? So if you do, just pause the video right now and go back and do, we've done 1 and 2 were done for you. We did 3 and 4 together, so that means you only have 5 and 6. And you can rewind this video to see, okay, what did we do when feet came first? What did we do when yards came first, okay? So and it's always the horse and fly chart, so hopefully help you there. If so, pause the video and work on those. All right? The next section, we're looking at feet and miles. In our brain, we need to know how many feet are in a mile. That's the main conversion we're working with. We're still going to use that horse and fly chart. So for this one, I'm going to do 2 again, and I'm going to do one that has the horse and another one that has the fly, okay? So the first one I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do number 7. So copy on your paper, and you can say, well, Miss Brown, they're going to be out of order because I'm going to have 3 and 4 and then 7. That's okay. If you're choosing to go on with me in the video, it's okay. You can just go back and fill in the rest. What's important to a teacher is we see that you've written down your work and you've worked it out. So if they're a little bit out of order for those first couple because we're doing them together, it's okay. So again, number 7, we have 79,200 feet, and I'm just writing down my problem, equals how many miles? So again, that's what I'm writing down. Now the first thing I like to do is write it down, to have it in front of me, and then after you write it down, I'm going to underline my units. Underline my units. Guess what I'm going to make? That old horse and fly chart. We only use the horse and fly chart. We could use it with metric, but I want to teach you the 5th grade way with metric so you'll be ready for next year. So it's just horse and fly chart for the customary. So I'm going to put my horse. I'm going to put my fly. Now as you continue to do these, if you feel confident and you want to just put H for horse, F for fly, that's okay. But again, remember I left room because I'm going to put what I know. Well, here's another thing. You can say, okay, we're comparing feet and miles. Look at my board, fill it in. 1 mile equals how many feet? But I want to show you how we break it down to do it. Look at feet and miles. Who's bigger? Who would be the horse? Would the foot be the horse or would the mile be the horse? Well, remember, a foot is 12 inches, right? So we're thinking just a little bit longer than this board. A mile is 4 times around the track at the high school. So who's bigger? Whoever the biggest one is, he goes under the horse. And it's the mile, isn't it? So I'm going to put MI for mile under horse, and then FT for feet under the fly. See what I've done? And then we go back, and that's where we use this until we put them in our head. Hopefully soon they'll be in our head. So 1 mile, remember the horse is always going to be one something. 1 mile, 1 foot, 1 yard, okay? How many feet are in a mile? And that's our long number we have to know. Look back at your chart. There's 5,280 feet in a mile. Okay? Have that set up on your board. And once you have that, look back up at your problem and see. So remember, that first one is always going to be that conversion that you have to know in your head. Okay, you have to know the equivalent of what 1 mile equals, or what 1 yard equals, or what 1 foot equals. Okay, so then we look back up and we say, well, what did they give us? Did they give us feet or did they give us miles? We have to match up the units, and they gave us feet, didn't they? So I'm going to write the feet under feet. So under that 5,280 feet, I'm going to write 79,200 feet. And again, guys, it's like with everything we've done in math, the more you do, the easier it gets. Now look, are we going to go from horse to fly or fly to horse? Well, you have to start with the number that they gave you. If they gave you a different number, if they gave you a number under fly, start with fly. So we're not going horse to fly. There's nothing there. We're going fly to horse. What do we have to do? Look up here. Fly to horse, divide, of course. Do not use the 1. We're going to divide this right here. Put the bigger number in first. Now you probably want to use a calculator for this. You could work it out, but I would use a calculator. So in our calculator, we're going to put, again, it could be a calculator on an iPhone, on your computer. I'm using mine right here. I'm going to put 79,200. That's my calculator. Hit my divide button. And then 5,280. Put that in there. And then hit equals. Give you a second. So again, you're putting 79,200 in your calculator. Divide button. 5,280. Equal button. And what'd you get? You should have gotten 15 miles, or 15, and then we add the miles on. So we have found the horse. He's 15 miles. So 79,200 feet is equivalent to 15 miles using our horse to fly chart. All right. Again, maybe you need to pause, think about it, review it. That's fine. I'm going to do one that goes different. Remember, this one went fly to horse, divide, of course. So let's do a different one. So now I'm going to do number 9. So write number 9 on your paper. I'm writing 6 miles equals how many feet. If I'm going too fast, then just pause me right now so you can write it down. So I'll give you a second. That's what you should write. 6 miles equals how many feet? Next up, T-chart. With the T-chart, write horse goes first, then fly goes next. See, it's repetitive. We're setting it up the same way every single time. I've left space so I can decide who's bigger, the mile or the foot. Well, from our last chart, we know definitely the mile. So I'm going to put 1 mile. Remember, the horse is 1 something. Okay, and then my feet. And you see I'm kind of quickening and beginning, adding some steps. So again, if it's not in your head yet, back to your chart. I hope you've made one, had it close to you. 1 mile equals how many feet? 5,280 feet. So I'm going to put 5,280 feet. That's where we always begin. Always begin with that measurement. I'll tell you the mistake 4th graders make is they want to take this and put it on that top line. No, no, no. The top line is always your measurements that are equivalent. 1 mile equals how many feet, or 1 yard equals how many feet, or 1 foot equals how many inches, okay? So that's always going to be your horse and fly. Horse being the bigger one, the mile. Fly is feet, okay? We first do units, and then we fill in to make it equivalent, okay? So then let's look what they gave us. Look, this time we have miles. Miles have to go under miles. So I'm going to put 6 under the 1. Now remember, my hint to you is we never use that 1. Let's say or saying. So don't just guess what we're doing. Let's say or saying. Are we going horse to fly or fly to horse? Well, we have a number in horse, so we're going to start with horse. Horse to fly, what do? Multiply. Horse to fly, multiply. Do not use that 1. We're going to crisscross over and multiply 6 times 5,280. Again, you can do it in your calculator, or you can do it on your own, whichever one you want to do. If you're doing it on your own without a calculator, just hit pause. Make sure you can work it out before I give the answer. I'm going to do it with a calculator. So we know with multiplication, we could put in either number first. It's a commutative property. But I'm going to go ahead and put in the bigger number just for good practice. 5,280 in my calculator times, because remember, horse to fly, multiply, times 6. There's the 6 equals big number. But that makes sense, doesn't it? Because it's going to take a lot of feet to make up a mile. For 1 mile, it's 5,280 feet. Well, we're talking 6 miles. So we have to take that 5,280, multiply it 6 times, or add it 6 times, multiply it by 6, or add it 6 times. And I come up with a big number. All right, now watch what I do. I'm going to double check it. So again, I'm going to put 5,280 times 6, just to make sure I came up with the same number and I did. All right, so here's what I have. 31,680 feet. It takes 31,680 feet to make 6 miles. Those are equivalent right there. So whatever I get down here, I want to put up here. And I didn't leave myself a big enough space, but it's okay. I'm going to write it above it. 31,680 feet. Okay, and once you have it on your board, also make sure that you're filling in your paper, okay? Make sure that you're filling those answers in as well. All right. So, again, maybe you want to pause the video and you want to do the rest. You have numbers 8, 10, 11, and 12 to do on converting feet to miles, okay? And then the last section I'm going to give you a couple of example problems for is yards to miles. So, again, knowing yards and miles. So, the first problem I want to do with you, and I'm going to do 2, is I'm going to do number 13. Go ahead and do that. And we have 21,120 yards equals how many miles? Now again, I'm just practicing, writing my problem down so that I can have the information in front of me and I'm not having to go from my sheet to this paper. I've got it in front of me, okay? Once you write your problem, next step, T-chart. With your T-chart, remember measurements, we're going to use horse, he's our bigger one, and fly. We leave some space below it, we're going to decide who's bigger. So you got that part, and again, if I'm going fast, just pause this so you can write down and catch up. All right, now let's look at our units. Don't worry about that number. Let's look at those units. Don't worry about the number. Who's bigger, the yard or the mile? And hopefully you said the mile, okay? If you're like, I don't know which one's bigger, Miss Brown, chart. That's what's good to have in front of you. We look and the mile is bigger than the yard because we listed them from smallest to greatest. So okay, I know that my horse is going to be 1 mile because remember, our horse is always one something. And our fly is going to be yards. So look back at your chart and say 1 mile equals 1,760 yards. And again, guys, it just takes practice and working on memorizing these. You want to memorize those. So I set it up. Mile is bigger than a yard, and then I put the measurements in to make them equivalent. 1 mile is equal to 1,760 yards. Okay, now once we've done that and set up our T-chart, let's look back up here and see which they give us, yards or miles. They gave us yards, so yards have to go with yards. Yards with yards, okay? So here I go. I put my 21,120 yards. And remember, we are not going to use that 1, okay? We're not going to be multiplying or dividing by that 1. So that'll give you a hint too. So let's go ahead and say our saying. Do we have anything with horse? No. So we're not starting with horse, we're starting with fly. So instead of going horse to fly, we have nothing there. We start with the number we have. We're going fly to horse, divide, of course. Fly to horse, divide, of course. Don't use the 1. We're going to divide that big number, 21,120, by 1,760, and it's okay to use a calculator. I just ask you if you're using a calculator, double check and do it twice, okay? So here we go. 21,120, put that in my calculator, hit the division button because we're fly to horse, divide of course, divide by 1,760, all right, and pause it to see what you get. I'm going to double check my answer. Got the same answer. So 21,120 divided by 1,760 is 12 miles. So I'm going to put that up here, and you'll see what I've done. 21,120 yards is the same as saying 12 miles. And I put up there. Those are equivalent measurements. Remember that equal sign means we're making them equivalent. Makes sense too, doesn't it? It'll take more yards to make up the miles. Now, if you happen to get, because you maybe divided wrong, maybe you did divide by that one, you tried to crisscross and divide, and you get that same answer over here, that's not right. If we are doing, yeah, 1 mile is equal to 1,760 yards, but look at how many yards we had up here. So we have more than 1 mile. So again, just double checking yourself, okay? So on that one, we went flat a horse, we divided, of course. Okay, let's do one more, and hopefully you feel more confident. Again, we'll talk about after this video what you can do if you still don't feel confident, okay? All right, so let's do number 15. Now let's skip around a little bit. 15, we have 16 miles equals how many yards? Okay, write your problem. What's your next step? Hopefully by now you're saying, oh, T-chart, Miss Brown, just like I can imagine you in class. I'd be up there and I'd be saying, what do we do next? T-chart. But no, you'd be saying it happy. You'd be like, T-chart, yay. Okay, so here we go. T-chart. Horse is always first. Fly is second. Get yourself in those patterns and routine. Space below our horse and fly. And let's look at those units. Who's bigger, the mile or the yard? And you're saying, oh, I don't know. Chart. We know that the mile is bigger. So our horse is going to be 1 mile. And our fly is going to be something with yards. Well, memorize them. But if you don't have them memorized, have your chart in front of you and then just fill in that conversion. 1 mile, and be careful, don't use feet, use yards. 1 mile equals 1,760 yards. Alright, if you need time to catch up, pause the video and catch up. I'll be the mustard, you be the ketchup. See, you guys miss my humor, I know. Alright, got it? Okay. So then go back up and say, did they give me miles or did they give me yards? And look, they gave me miles, didn't they? So we put miles with miles. 16 miles. Now, say you're saying, don't just guess what we do. Remember, we're not going to use that 1. That 1 mile we're not going to use. So am I going from horse to fly or fly to horse? Well, start with whatever number they gave you. I'm going horse to fly. Horse to fly, multiply. Horse to fly, multiply. Not using the 1, we go crisscross when we multiply. That's another hint. Put a little multiplication there. So again, you can use your calculator and you can do 16 times 1,760 yards. Because remember, we know it takes a lot of yards to make up a mile, okay? So you are going to get a big number. So here we go. 1,760 times 16 equals. Give you a second to do that, and as always, I'm going to put it right back in my calculator and double check it again. Okay, you should have gotten 28,160 yards. If you're saying, what? Multiply again and just double check, make sure you put your digits in there correctly. So 16 miles is equal to 28,160 yards, okay? And if you don't have enough room to write it on that blank, write it below, write it in the box, it's okay. So again, we went from horse to fly, we multiplied. We multiplied 16 times 1,760, and to make that equal, we know for 16 miles, it would take 28,160 yards to equal 16 miles. That makes sense because it's going to take, since miles are bigger, it's going to take more yards to make it up to it, okay? So hopefully this has helped. We've done 2 now. We did 15 and 13, and you can complete the rest. But now that you've seen the video and you've walked through the steps, if you have a question, you're stuck on one, you know you can reach out to me, text me, call me, have your parents call me, have the problem set up and ready to go so I can help you, okay? Because just like we tell you in class, we can't help you unless you have some definite supports to tell us. So remember when we used to tell you guys, don't just say, I don't know. Tell us, hey, Miss Brown, I'm working on number 13, or we've done number 13, so I'm working on number 17, and I'm just stuck. And we'll get together and we'll work it out together. Because again, the more you practice, the better you'll get. So again, use the horse to fly method with customary units. While you're using your calculator to help you with computations with conversion, memorize the facts, okay? Have those facts in your mind and be able to tell me how many yards are in a mile, how many feet are in a mile, how many inches are in a foot, okay? And get good at this before we move on to metric. Now the other thing you'll be practicing with is gallon man with cups and pints and quarts, but I know a lot of you guys we're pretty confident in that, but as always, if you need help on that, I'm here too. This was a longer video, so if you need to, break it up in sections and work on it. Don't think that you have to get this all done at one time, okay? You have time. Just make sure you're working on it to finish out your 4th grade year and be confident and to get you ready for 5th grade. And as always, I miss you guys. I miss seeing you every day and hearing your stories and your jokes. I hope you're staying safe, and if you need anything, reach out to me, and I'll see you soon in another video.